Hey, everybody. Today for you, podcast number 91. Today's podcast is titled, Do You Want a Wonderfully Hard Life? Hey, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of your weekly Limitless Life Network podcast. We are Dr. Pete and Sandy Lombardi, and this is the Limitless Life Network podcast where we flesh out the limitations that are preventing you from reaching your goals and living the life that you are called to lead. And we like to welcome you to another fine edition of the Limitless Life Network podcast. So thanks for tuning in. I think this week's topic is timely, and I think it is also one that should be super useful for years to come. So
very good.
Yeah, very good lead in. So if you find the same, then be sure to share this, like, follow, share, subscribe if you aren't subscribed already. But you probably already are because we have a lot of loyal listeners, a lot of loyal followers. Actually, I heard somebody through the walls the other day saying that they listened to the podcast and they were talking to Dr. Tim. And I don't think they realized it was Dr. Tim that walked into the adjusting area. And he's like, no, that's not me. That's Dr. Pete. And so anyway, I was really encouraged, excited to hear that this woman, had listened to the podcast. So
we'll have to get Dr. Tim on sometime.
I think he would be a smash hit.
Yeah,
absolutely a smash hit.
We'll plan that.
Yeah, we should. He's got a lot of. He's very interesting. Very interesting. A lot of good stuff. He's a really good thinker, too. All right, anyway, on with the show. Today's episode title, you came up with it.
I did.
Yes, you did. And this one in our AI headline analyzer scored really high. So it's supposedly a great title. Do you want a wonderfully hard life? So it sounds like an oxymoron, doesn't it? But anyway, here's the backstory. I was headed out today. Well, I actually went out today with my daughter Grace to get some chicken feed for our chickens and some other things for the farm, the ranch, the property here. And we stopped into this family-owned feed store, agricultural store. And I was asking for, I had a list of things I wanted to get, and they were out of something, a particular seed I was going to plant. And she said, well, at least you didn't ask me for bedding. And I was like, why? What's the big deal there? She's like, wood shavings. I can't seem to find any wood shavings. And I'm like, well, how come? What's the big deal? And she's like, all the sawmills are shut down. They're shutting down. They were working tons of hours, and now they're working no hours. And it's because nobody's buying lumber anymore. The price of lumber went from 90 cents a board foot to 40 cents a board foot. And so, the writing's on the wall, the sky is falling, and, supply and demand. And the lumber industry is feeling it right now. So, we're going to hear that. It's an election year. So what usually happens in an election year?
A lot of uncertainty.
A lot of uncertainty, right? Like there's this creation of turmoil. There's this creation of an uncertainty. Like, what do you do? Who should I vote for? This guy's good. This guy's bad. I'm not going to tell you what to do. That's up to you. But the point of this podcast is to understand that point number one, tough times never last, but tough people do. That's a saying. Tough times never last, but tough people do. And it's really, tough times will always come, but what happens when you go through a tough time? What happens on the other side of it? What usually happens? They're usually stronger or weaker?
Always stronger.
But that's what I think, right? Like, I mean, if you go through something tough, it makes you stronger in some way, shape, or form. And more than likely, you'll learn something through a tough time. So I don't look at tough times anymore like it's a bad thing. I look at tough times when challenges arise as like great opportunity, and I look at it from a mindset of abundance versus scarcity. So a lot of times when tough times arise, the first thing people want to do is what?
To shrink back.
And to start cutting things, right? So they start to look at where they're spending money and say, ooh, what can I trim the fat on? What can I cut back on? Instead of saying like, okay, if times are going to be tougher, then how is it that I need to provide more value into the world and into the universe so that, I'll be able to keep on track with the times that are tough. How can I see this as an opportunity? Where do people need the most help and where can I chip in?
Right.
Where can I pitch in to help solve some of these problems right now? Instead of saying, oh, where can I shrink back so I can try to stay the same?
Yeah. I remember one of our coaches at one point years ago talked about when you're looking at your numbers and you're going through a recessive type of climate, and your instinct might be to cut back on advertising, marketing, and he would say it's time to double it. Like it's time to pour into that to grow through the time that would potentially be shrinkage.
The other thing is to really don't stop doing the things that are good for you. like that's when things are going to be tough, why would you stop doing the things that are good for you and that are actually adding quality into your life? But that's usually one of the first places people look to cut are the things that are actually beneficial to them. And I'm going to talk about the reason why we tend to do that, which is really point number 2, which is
this one you had heard, do unto yourself as if you were to be the one taking care of yourself.
Well, isn't that weird? Aren't you the one that is taking care of yourself?
Right. Well, and it's kind of the opposite of the golden rule. Well, not the opposite. It's just a different twist.
It's the golden rule, but applied to looking at how you actually take care of yourself, right? So, and this comes from the fact that really good people tend to take care of others better than they take care of themselves. They oftentimes will actually sacrifice themselves in order to take care of others. I don't know if that sounds familiar to any of you listening, but that is the case, that we oftentimes do that. But if we were to ask like our children, if we should, if as parents, do they want us to do things that are harmful to ourselves so that they could have something? Would our kids agree with that? What do you think?
No.
Okay, so by neglecting something for yourself, you could potentially be doing harm to yourself.
Right.
But we still will do that, and I think I have a good idea why. And when you think about doing good things for other people, we are also, unfortunately, we're born with a sinner's heart, right? We are sinful by nature, so to speak. And we've all had a tendency to do some pretty bad things in our life. And I know that I've certainly done some things I'm not super proud of in my life. But we all remember all those things that we did. Not everybody else knows that, right? But we all know where we fall short. And so, like, if you think of somebody who you would maybe not be nice to, why would that be? Why would you not be nice to somebody else? Could there be a reason that would compel you to be angry or mad at somebody? Well, it's probably because of something that they did or something that they said that angered you, and maybe you wanted to enact some revenge. But I'm not saying you did, but you may have wanted to or compelled you to. Well, and if you compared yourself to that person who you're not happy with, well, haven't you done those same things in your life? And so maybe that's why you withhold nice things from yourself, because you know that maybe, you know what, maybe I don't deserve all that. And it's kind of a strange way to look at it, but if we were to be that harsh on ourselves, and we really shouldn't be that harsh, because we're all screwed up in a lot of ways. And that's where, salvation comes into a big part and really helps people clean their life up, is because you realize that if you are truly repentful and sinful, you don't have to carry around all that guilt and all that shame, right? And so, that's where it's okay to take care of yourself. It's actually the right thing to do well for yourself, to aim up for yourself, because that enables you to take care of the people that you love more and to serve others more.
Right.
So, Yeah, do unto yourself as if you were to be the one taking care of yourself. So is like if you were to look at yourself like you look at somebody else that you care about, and you took care of yourself to the same degree that you take care of your children or your grandchildren, like how well would you take care of yourself?
That's really good.
Thank you. So anyway, that's not all my thinking. That is actually kind of I got that from Jordan Peterson. So he's quite smarter than I am in that regard.
We hadn't talked about this, but yesterday I was thinking about a situation, and Pete kind of called me out. He's like, "There you go again, rescuer." And it was years ago that a good friend of mine, Katrina Potter, helped coach me through something, and I'd never heard the term rescuer until she made me aware of it. It's kind of a personality trait of someone who wants to always try to solve things for other people. And it was a good reminder. And this hits home, like you need to be able to rescue, in a sense, yourself and be pouring into yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great. So, and then we come up to point number 3, which is this is all you. And it's really where the title of the podcast came from. So
yeah, point number 3 is life is wonderfully hard. And I don't know, this wording, I guess, came to me not related to the podcast at all. Yesterday, I think I was driving and just reflecting on life lately. And I was in this conversation with myself, and I'm like, I would describe life as wonderfully hard. And it's wonderfully hard over and over. And like, there's some hard things, right? But then I remind myself that there's wonderful things that I prayed for and wanted to come through, and particularly our son and his wife moving back to the area with their son, our grandson. And it's something that we wanted, and we wanted to support them, and we love it. And that there's also like a hard side to it, like a transition period. It's hard at some points to watch them figuring out new life, like where do they fit in and what's their role in a new in the practice. And so a lot of dynamics, and that makes it a little hard, but it's wonderful, right? Like it's blessings that we wanted to be happening. So I think for all of us, like looking at life, yes, it might be hard, but it's wonderfully hard, and you're meant to go through it and I know walk through it with the right people and with God, and talking to him about it and letting him, ride those hard times with you and see them as beautiful.
I love that. And it makes me think of like, be careful what you wish for, because you'll probably get it. And sometimes we look at, the things that we dream of, and they finally show up, like you're really hoping and praying for this, or working really hard toward something. And then all of a sudden it's here, and it comes with its own whole new set of problems and details that are not ironed out. And it's a place you've never been before. Mm-hmm. And so now all of a sudden it's unfamiliar territory. And now that creates a level of stress that you didn't ever see coming. But I want to tell you that, stress is always going to be present. It's just, what form is it going to be in? And I look at, it really kind of brings me to point number 4, is that we're always looking like we're fighting for this stage of like, oh, finally I've got some relief. We just got off this, the Memorial Day weekend, where we get extra days off of work, and everybody's like, oh, what a relief. Now I can go do nothing, or go to the lake, or go swimming, or go have a cookout. And some people just get, go off the deep end with everything because that's their relief, because they're not doing what they're doing and that they don't want to be doing maybe. But we're always like fighting for relief. But the reality is relief comes from predictability. Mm-hmm. When you know what you have to do all the time, and everything is already laid out for you, there's a relief. When there's the opposite of the relief is uncertainty. When there's a lot of uncertainty, that brings a lot of stress. But uncertainty is also opportunity, which is kind of back to the first point. It's how do you look at it? Do you look at it from an abundance mindset, or do you look at it from scarcity? Because if you're looking at it from scarcity, it is a negative stress. When you look at that type of of thing as in an abundance mindset, that those uncertainties are actually a positive stress that you can build off of. And if you rise to the occasion, you know you're going to overcome it and you're going to learn along the way. So then you can create something that becomes more stable and more predictable with less uncertainty until what? Until the next thing comes along, until you decide to grow again, right? And that's really how growth and life is, I think a life well lived is that it goes in fits and starts. It's just not a linear progression, and hopefully it's not a plateau. It's not like I got to this point and I plateaued, because I think plateaus are a false sense of security that really is a gradual downhill.
Right.
And I just look at it as like, you know what, it's time maybe to climb this mountain a little higher, and I might camp for a little while, but I'm going to break camp and I'm going to keep climbing.
Yeah.
And when you break camp, it takes extra effort to pack everything up and get started again. And then you're along that route of uncertainty and problem solving.
Yeah. It's interesting. I was just saying to you this morning, I feel like a little bit of this uncertainty. It's we just finished up our homeschool year. I'm watching Brooks. It's like my days are different than I'm used to, and I don't quite have a flow to them yet. I don't wake up in the morning and know exactly what we're doing, and that's a little unsettling to me. And so that kind of brings us to point number 5, which is operate from a list, and that's exactly like what I need to do, and see it as an opportunity. Like, okay, we have this summer season, we're done with our schoolwork. Like, I can sit with Grace and we can make a list of like, what are some goals that we want to do? What might be things we want to experience this summer, or things we want to accomplish? So I guess looking at a time of lack of structure and making it effective and putting a plan in place.
Yeah. Well, I think we look at things like very much like we look at things through a year calendar, and realize that this year calendar is really making up your life.
Right.
Right? So your life is a culmination of a certain number of years, and you've already lived a certain number of them that are behind you. And what you have left is those number of years left. So I'm a big fan of sub-goaling. I find there's a lot more effectiveness in sub-goaling, because when you look at it just year to year, there's no really forward thinking. It's just like I'm getting by, I'm getting through the year. But if you look at like, okay, if I'm going to set goals now for sub-goaling, like just say for the summer because I have uncertainty, which is a great idea. Okay, what is this building toward? What are you trying to learn or accomplish in a period of time that will be with you for the rest of your life, or will add to the story that makes up your life? You know, I've been doing a lot of reflecting about that recently too, and I posed the question to someone, and I said, you know, at the end of the day, in 200 years, what will your life have meant? Will people remember your name? Will they remember my name for what we did? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, but I have the ability to make some level of impact to the culture, to the community, to the planet, that may be something that has longevity beyond me. But it may not, you know, but if I don't think about it, and I don't sub-goal and break down to try to get to it, I'll never do that.
Right.
It'll never happen. The likelihood is like, you know, taking a bow and arrow and aiming at a star in the sky and thinking you're going to hit it.
Yeah.
You know? So anything else you want to add to operating from a list or sub-goaling?
Oh,
We all use lists, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So you know how effective it is when you have a list and you can cross things off. Well, do it for your summer, do it for your month, do it for your week. You know, look at it, but also future pace it out for your entire life. Like how does this add to your life as to what gets on your list?
Well, and I think it's a good way. Just it's a step forward. Like I need to do that when my brain is jumbled. I just need to do something productive. So like creating a list, checking things off, like it just gets me moving.
Yeah. Well, I think people just experience that with extra days off of work, because what do you end up doing when you have all of a sudden you've been granted free time? You tend to do maybe a couple of activities, but then among the hours of the day, you probably are super unproductive.
Right.
A lot of people don't do anything that's productive at all. And there's like, well, of course, we're not supposed to. It's vacation. Well, I mean, that's the cultural thing, is that's vacation. You're supposed to be unproductive. I don't know why that's a rule, right? Like, I like being productive when I have time off. It makes me feel better.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think most people agree with that, actually. All right. Well, anything else to add?
I don't think so.
All right. Great job. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode. That's all we have for this week's edition of your weekly Limitless Life Network podcast. Be sure to tune in each and every week so you can stay connected, be inspired, and keep moving toward your best life by stripping away your limitations. And we will see you back next week.
We appreciate you spending your time with us.
Yes, we do.